Welcome everyone to the Superhero Chronicles, and today we're going to be covering Guardians of the Galaxy. Written and directed by James Gunn, starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Batista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, and Lee Pace. This is the fall. This is the, of course, the second installment. Phase 2 came out in the summer of 2014, shortly after the release of The Winter Soldier. Now, I want to say, when I first saw this movie, I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I know a lot of people will praise this movie to no end. They think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm not going to go there. Because while I do like it, I don't think it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. I've seen better movies that top Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think that because this movie is so... has such a reused concept that the fact that this movie gets all the praise because it reinvented it. It's like, what did it really reinvent? But anyway, let's. I'm gonna get my true thoughts on this movie. I'm gonna give you my true thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy and what I think of this movie. Like I said, I like it. I don't hate it, but I do feel it's very overrated. All right. Number one. The cast is spot on. I love the cast. The cast is fantastic. Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, Peter Quill is great. Zoe Saldana as Gamora is fantastic. She is a badass. I like Zoe Saldana. She's one of my favorite actresses. And she is perfect for Gamora because she brings that right amount of badass, but also that right amount of honorability to the character, and I love it. Batista plays Drax the Destroyer, and I've always been a fan of Batista because I am a big wrestling fan. I mean, come on, look at the shirt, CM Punk. So, I actually was not bothered when Batista was cast. I'm like, okay, I can see that. Batista's not a bad guy. Batista's not a bad actor. And in this movie, Batista is a hidden gem. Like, he really is a hidden gem because the man can act. He has a couple of scenes where he's really acting and showing emotion, and I like it. And only that, Drax has a couple of badass scenes in this movie too, which I love. Of course, we get to Groot, played by Vin Diesel, and Groot is like that lovable lug. Well, first off, Groot's like this planetoid, humanoid tree that can talk and move and shit. But I like the characterization of Groot. He's like this lovable. He's like the lovable oaf in a way, I guess. It's like you can't not like Groot because Groot's the type of guy that you want on your team because you know he's gonna be very loyal to you, and you know that he's your friend to the end. So I like that with Groot. Then we get to Rocket Raccoon, voiced by Bradley Cooper, and I fucking love Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon is hilarious, and I've always liked Bradley Cooper ever since I saw him in Wedding Crashers years ago. So I had zero concerns about him being in this movie because I knew Bradley was going to nail it out of the park, and I can't believe how right I was. Not only was Bradley hilarious as Rocket, but Rocket himself was also a fucking badass. Especially in the prison scene where he's like taking out everybody. And Rocket has like some of the best one-liners in this entire movie. For example, there's one scene where like everyone there's that the cliched all the heroes stand up in a circle because we're ready to go fight. Rocket stands up and he's just like, "Here we are, we're all standing in a circle like a couple of jackasses." I fucking love it. I love it. Yeah. So Rocket to me highlight of this movie. I would pay to see a Rocket Raccoon and Groot movie with just them in it because those two can carry their own movie. That's how entertaining they are, because Rocket and Groot also have a good are symbiotic. They're partners, and their chemistry with each other is great. And the chemistry with all the Guardians is really good. They all bounce off each other really well. Kind of like in Star Wars with Luke, Han, Leia, etc. It's kind of the same basic concept. Where all the heroes, they're different from each other, but they all have a commonality, which means that they've all lost something. So I like that. And of course, Lee Pace as the villain Ronan the Accuser. From an acting standpoint, Lee Pace does a great job. From an aesthetic standpoint, Ronan looks awesome. From a villain standpoint, I like the motivations, but he's completely, what's the word I'm looking for? He is completely useless to this movie. Ronan the Accuser leaves no mark in this movie whatsoever. You could have taken Ronan out, and this movie would have been no different. Because he does not contribute a thing to the plot. He's barely in the movie. And there are certain sections of this movie where you think were like they teasing as something that could possibly happen, and then like when you get to the end, you're just like, well, that was dumb. I mean, like Ronan's whole thing is that he's like this terrorist, religious zealot, and he's also part of this race called the Kree, and he is against the fact that the Kree signed a treaty with the planet of Xandar and the Xandarians, so he wants to cleanse the planet of Xandar because he doesn't agree with the treaty. Okay, I get that. That's not that bad. That's actually pretty good. But the thing is that I don't know. They just don't really like dive right into. They don't really explore why he doesn't like the Xandarians, why he's such a fanatic with the Kree, with his own race. Like they don't. Maybe they do explain it. I didn't catch it, but I don't know what his. I don't really know what his motivation is for wanting to take them down. And that's why to me his villain plot is kind of blah because like there's no real reason why you want to take him down. Okay, so you don't want to agree with the treaty. You want to prove a point. Okay, but why don't you agree with the treaty? Like what happened? Like what's the history that led to the treaty that made you not want to? That made you be against it? Like I want to know these things. I want my villain to be fleshed out. And not only that. There, of course, Gamora and her sister Nebula, played by Karen Gillan, are like also, are on loan from Thanos to team up with Ronan. Of course, we find out that Gamora is actually playing two sides at the middle and actually wants to, because Ronan's after this thing called the Orb, which has an Infinity Stone in it. And of course, Gamora, knowing what she knows, I'm sorry, and Gamora wants to steal that stone because she has a buyer, the Collector, played by Benicio del Toro, wants the orb for himself and is offering to pay Gamora money. So she's pretty much infiltrating Ronan just to get her hands on the cube. And at the same time, she does not want to be a part of Thanos because pretty much from birth, Thanos killed her real parents and Thanos pretty much trained to be a killing machine. Also at the same time, her and her sister Nebula have a rivalry going on. And that's another thing that they didn't even hint at, or they hinted at, but they didn't fully explore. Is I want more with Gamora and Nebula because it sounded interesting that they're both sisters, and then Thanos favors Gamora over Nebula. I want to know more about this thing. Now, another thing about this movie is that it sets up interesting concepts, but it doesn't even attempt to even dive right into it. There's also a cool Thanos. This is the first official appearance of Thanos, played by the awesome Josh Brolin, one of my favorite actors. And he and Ronan, share a scene together, and like Thanos makes a threat to Ronan, and like okay, and Thanos makes a threat to Ronan, and Ronan makes a threat to Thanos later on, and like I want to see more of this rivalry between Thanos and Ronan. Like you're planting the seeds for something that could be very interesting. Like these two villains who are at each other's necks. I want to see it. Thanos is the most powerful being in the universe, maybe, and you can clearly tell Ronan wants to get that power too. I would rather see a story between Ronan and Thanos and how that can all come about. But guess what? At the end of the movie, Ronan is pretty much dead, which kills off anything of interest that could possibly happen in future movies, which really gets on my nerves when superhero movies do this. Like you tease me with something potentially good, and you take it away from me, and then I'm gonna bury you for that. Because why would you do that for? Why would you kill off interesting stories for something that's probably gonna be like a retread or just nothing that great? But anyway, so yeah, Those are big negatives for me, and those take off points because you're setting up for the future, and when you rather like not even go there and get rid of it and just cock tease, I'm gonna fucking bury your ass because why would you do that for? Why would you bury me? Why would you do that for? I don't like it. But anyway, uh, let's get to the action set pieces. The action set pieces in this movie are very entertaining and very enjoyable. Of course, like there's the opening scene when Star-Lord takes on, Ronin's men who are coming after him, and they have a cool little scene in some planet, which would look great. There's this funny chase. There's also this funny scene on Xandar where like Gamora is chasing Quill, and at the same time Groot and Rocket are also chasing Quill because Yondu, played by Michael Rooker, who is hilarious in this movie, and another favorite character of mine is Yondu. I think Yondu is amazing in this movie. I think Yondu was awesome in this movie, and I'm a fan of Michael Rooker. But anyway, like Yondu puts like a bounty on Quill's head, and Rocket and Groot are also chasing him too. So like that was cool, and that was funny shit. But so yeah, so like then they all get into like this prison thing, and like and that's where they start the formations of that. That's where they start to form like the whole bond that they will eventually have by the end of the movie. And they travel from this prison to this thing called Nowhere, which is like this mining colony within a severed terrestrial head. And that's where they go to meet the Collector, Del Toro's character. And Del Toro takes the orb, pretty much says this is Infinity Stone, very powerful, and blah 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 blah. And Ronan gets his hands on it, gets the power, blah 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 blah. Then we get to the end of the movie where pretty much Quill makes a deal with Yondu to join forces with him, so that they can all bind. And then then Quill joins forces with the Xandarians, and they all form this unit to try and take down Ronin. And that action set piece at the end is pretty cool, and I like it. So that was all great. And also, before I continue on, John C. Reilly and Glenn Close are also in this movie. They're not in it for a long time. They have like bit parts, but Glenn Close Glenn Close did a good job, which she had, and John C. Reilly had some funny bits, especially the interrogation, especially like the interrogation scene where he's like he pretty much tells another character about another guy about every character, about all the Guardians in a way, whatever. You know what scene I'm talking about. And it also has a couple of other funny bits scattered throughout the movie too. So, excuse me, John C. Reilly was another highlight. But anyway, we get to the end, and Groot pretty much makes like the sacrifice to save the rest of the Guardians when they attack the Dark Aster, which is Ronin's ship, and that thing explodes, and of course they have no way to get out. So Groot pretty much takes everyone and forms like this big like tree cocoon, but he sacrifices himself in order to save them. And that's actually a very emotional scene. I actually like that scene. That was a very well directed scene with that. I give props. So we get to the big climax, and Ronin about to kill Quill, but with the gem, but Quill then takes the gem, and it's revealed that they revealed earlier that mortals are easily destroyed by the gem, but we also learned that at the end of the movie that Peter Quill is half human and half something else. So he's able to withstand the power of the gem. And of course, that's when all the Guardians, all grab onto one another. And you get this cool, superhero moment. And of course, Peter Quill, tells Ronin, we're the Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, the orb just dissolves Ronin. So that whole light show was pretty cool. And of course, we get to the end. They give the orb to Nova Prime. They keep it for themselves so that no one gets their hands on it. And that's pretty much the whole movie, because the ending's pretty much standard. Characters are these characters are resolved of their crimes. They join together, become the Guardians, and off to ride into the sunset to have a better movie. So yeah. That is my review of Guardians of the Galaxy. All in all, like I said, I like this movie a lot, but because it has things that to me should have been more expanded upon, and it sets up things that could have potentially been interesting, but they decided, I I guess they didn't want to do that. So I'm going to give this movie. I'm going to give it an 8. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I am going to give it an 8 out of 10. Those two big major missteps that I mentioned, that takes a lot off the grade because those are things that I wish that they did not, that I wish they would have expanded upon more, or saved for a future movie. The stuff with Ronan and Thanos, I would love to see more of that. The stuff with Nebula and Gamora, they didn't even scratch the surface of that rivalry. Ronan's motivations were not really all that clear to me, and his reason why he wanted to eradicate an entire planet, if it was explained, it wasn't. It was very sloppily explained, and to me, I'm sorry. If the villain does not have proper motivation, I'm taking points off because to me that's sloppy writing, and you're just not committed to wanting to write for a villain. So, again, 8 out of 10. Acting is great. The action is great. The directing is on point. The writing the writing is clunky in areas. The writing could be very sloppy and clunky in areas. But overall, I do like this movie, and yes, just because I think it's overrated, that does not mean I hate it. I want to make that very clear. Just because I think it's overrated, that does not mean I hate it. I actually do like it. I don't like it as much as everyone else, but I do like it. But anyway, that's my take on Guardians of the Galaxy. I hope you all enjoyed this review. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you again next time as we get to the long-awaited sequel to the Avengers. Until then, take care, guys.